Shabbat shalom, everyone. I hope you're doing well. This week's parsha is my favorite parsha of all time, and I know that I say that, but this is like actually really my favorite parsha. It's Parshat Beshalach, which is the story of the splitting of the sea, and it's also called this Shabbat is called Shabbat Shira, and it's a particularly auspicious time to daven for a soulmate. That's one thing, but it's also just kind of an auspicious Shabbat because a huge miracle happened on this time so many years ago. So there's a few things that I love to talk about from this parsha. So the first thing is that when the Jewish people have finally escaped, Pharaoh changes his mind. The Jewish people are trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea, Yam Suf. Moshe holds out his staff to split the sea, and nobody walks in. And it is said that on the merit of this one guy who chose to walk in, who had faith and walked in, this guy named Nachshon, did the sea actually split. So Nachshon steps in. It goes past his ankles. It goes past his knees. It goes back past his thighs. It goes back past his stomach. It goes past his shoulders. It goes past his neck. It goes past his mouth. It goes past his nose. The water apparently went all the way up to Nachshon's eyes, so that he could no longer pray with his mouth. He could only pray with his eyes, with his tears. And such a strong emotion, such as just like, Hashem, we're stuck between these two crazy forces. May this work out for whatever it's supposed to be. And the sea split on behalf of Nachshon's faith, because he was the only person who had the trust in God to keep moving, which is a beautiful thing. So that's the first thing. Be a Nachshon, be a fire starter, be a trailblazer, be the person who is willing to make the huge leap. The second thing is the story of Miriam. So Miriam, at the splitting of the sea, she leads all the women and everyone in what's called Shirat Hayam, the song at the sea. And it said that Miriam has her tambourine. And so what does this teach us? Personally, if I was told that I had to leave my place of bondage and was going to be freed, I don't know that I would bring musical instruments. Like, I don't think that's the first thing on my mind. But Miriam, she was such a tzedekah, such a righteous woman with such deep faith. As we remember, she is the reason that Moshe exists. She had a vision. She's a prophetess. She had a vision. She had nevuah, a prophecy that Moshe would be the one to save the Jewish people. And so she encouraged her mother and father to live together again so they could have another child. Miriam, of course, she's just has this amazing, amazing faith. So she brings her tambourine. Why? Because she knew that whatever was going to happen, she didn't know if the sea was going to split. She didn't know if some other crazy miracle was going to happen. But she knew that there was going to be something to celebrate about. And so she brought her tambourine. And this is not the same thing at all, but I've always been so inspired by that story. And in my search for a job in entertainment, I was like, whatever, getting sad. And there was one point where I had like the opportunity to buy this lanyard. And to me, I always picture people with like, who work in television with like their lanyard, their name tag that they buzz into the building and carry around or whatever. And so I bought this lanyard kind of preemptively, telling myself like, one day I'll use this lanyard, to have a job in TV. And I brought this lanyard with me to New York and sat in my room for a year. And then finally I got this job that I could use the lanyard with. And it felt like such a full circle moment. I was like, I am Miriam with her tambourine, but it is Shir with her lanyard. And every time someone compliments me on my lanyard, which is very cute and pink and sparkly, I do tell them that story. They think that I'm a little cuckoo, but they're also a little bit inspired. Yeah, and then the other thing is, Parshat Beshalach is called Shira. It's called Shabbat Shira, this Shabbat of song. But it's not only is there this song that everyone's saying, that everyone somehow tapped into this spiritual frequency and knew the words and knew the music and knew the dance steps. I don't know what they were doing at Shirat Hayam. Not only was there that, but it's also called Shabbat Shira because a shir, a song has a different definition in the Torah. So in the Torah, and I've said this before, and I'll say it 1,000 more times because I think it's so inspiring. A shir in the Torah is kind of like a real piece of music. A real piece of music has a lot of notes, a lot of individual notes, accidentals, half notes, half tones to half steps, key signatures, musical markings, dynamic markings, accompaniment, melody, harmony. There's like so many pieces to a piece of music. And one single quarter note, if we see one single note, that doesn't really mean much, but lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of quarter notes and eighth notes and 16th notes and accidentals and, rests and time signatures and all these things together makes a piece of music. And that is what a shir is, what a song is in our lives as well, because there's all these little tiny quarter note here, 16th note there, eighth note there, all these things come together to form a piece of music. And this happens in our life when we have all these seemingly unrelated things happen. And suddenly we realize exactly why all those seemingly unrelated things were not only connected, but why they had to happen. So there's, always the example of I had to miss my train so that I could miss my plane so that I could not be in that crash, or I had to miss the bus so I wouldn't be in the car then. I had to, whatever it is, I had to sleep through my alarm, whatever it is, these things that seem negative or seem not to mean anything at the time really mean something great. And so there are three things that I want you to think about. One, the time that you've seen sheer songs in your life. And there's then times where you've been a Miriam, where you've brought a physical object because you've had such deep faith, and a time where you were a Nachshon, where you were a trailblazer, because it's really important to think about ourselves in relation to these stories. Shabbat Shalom, and God willing, I will see you all next week.